James Spader will return as Ultron in the Vision series. The Rohirrim ride in an official trailer. Plus, MCU actors had a lot to say about the future slate of films. All that and more coming up on this week's Multiverse News. Welcome to Multiverse News, your source for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name's Matthew Carroll, and with me on the panel today, we have Jay Sisson. What's happening, Jay?
Man, not too much. Just happy to be here. We got a real interesting news week ahead of us, so I'm excited to get to it.
Yeah, a lot of stuff dropping even last minute. And Haley Hobbs, what's going on?
I'm trying to keep my eyelids open because I'm super tired right now, but I'm here. I'm going to bring the energy. If I keep my eyes open real wide, it helps, right?
That's right. We have 1 hour of energy to bring. We got to bring that energy. You got to bring that energy that tells everyone that you're on the verge of falling asleep.
Yeah.
As soon as this ends, I'm passing out.
It's totally going to happen.
And J. Scotty St. Clair, what's happening, bud?
Yeah, I can relate. I feel like I'm getting my second wind here. I'm energized by this week of news, which is anything but weak.
Ooh.
Oh,
nice. Double homophones. I like it.
Is that what that is?
Right? Homophones.
Homophone,
sure.
yeah, that's right.
Sounds great.
Well, we got a 5-star review to read this week. Thank you so much for writing it in. Amelia says, I listen to this podcast when I'm at work or school, and it really helps me get through the day. P.S. Haley is my favorite.
No,
hey,
Amelia,
there we go.
You're my favorite.
Aww.
That was from when Scotty and I got totally left off of somebody's review.
Yeah, there was a review, if you remember, there was a review that was like, Matthew Carroll and Jay Sisson are great, or something like that.
No,
it was like
Jay
totally
Sisson.
ignored.
Jay Sisson from Commute the Podcast.
Yeah. Exactly.
AKA Jay Sisson wrote that.
I mean, now this is it might have been a shadow writer for me, but this is now a call to the listeners. I mean, we've had a specific mention in a 5-star review of me, of Matt, and now of Haley. Like, we need a Scotty review.
Time.
It is your chance. If you've never written a review, now is your chance for glory.
I want to see 5. Let's go.
Yeah, now that you said it, Jay, I feel like we're getting a real Scotty heavy week. I like
the people have spoken. I don't need to make it about me. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, let's make it rain Scotty in the 5-star reviews.
Yes. All right. Well, our first story for this week. The Untitled Vision series that was formerly known as VisionQuest got a significant update this week with James Spader announced to be returning as Ultron. Little else is known about the series beyond the fact that it is the second of 2 WandaVision spinoffs on the way, and that Star Trek Picard's Terry Matalas joined the series as showrunner earlier this year. It's been almost 10 years since Spader appeared as the titular character of 2015's Avengers Age of Ultron. Do we think his malware is up to date?
My favorite thing about these shows is that they're formerly known as Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince. It's really, really funny they're doing that with Agatha and this. It just tickles my funny bone. This is pretty interesting. We don't know anything about this series, but Spader coming back means it's more than just flashbacks. So is it, Vision having introspection and maybe tapping into some Ultron, or, did he find some of his code somewhere in the interwebs, wherever they live in the world? I still have never figured it out, but who doesn't love a James Spader voice role? I mean, he killed it as Ultron. Definitely, that movie ages really well in terms of how underrated it is, and he's just a huge part of that. So, yay!
I'm totally with you. And this is ever since we saw White Vision do his thing and disappear. I have been saying that what I really wanted was that he went on a quest to figure out who he is, and I figured he'd be revisiting the sort of versions of himself from the past, and I always for a long time I speculated he might show up in Wakanda Forever because I thought it would be a good place for him because he was downloaded into Shuri downloaded him or whatever. But this is even better. The idea that returning to his roots means returning to one of his sort of fathers, as it were, with Ultron and Tony kind of collaborating to create Vision. I'm pumped to see, like you said, James Spader, amazing. Can't wait to hear him again, but also to see what that means for the Vision character and revisiting his origins. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's always kind of been the thing with Ultron, right? Is like the movie Age of Ultron, like you said, ages well, and I agree with you, but I think a lot of people, when they think about that movie, they think maybe Ultron was a little bit underutilized as a character in the MCU. He really only has this brief appearance in a movie, and then we see all these other villains get built up over multiple movies like Loki and Thanos and, you know, these future ones that we have coming down the road. So I think when you think about Ultron, sometimes that's the conversation, is that this is a character that just was sort of a flash in the pan, just like kind of really quick, but had a little bit more potential to maybe do some more, maybe be a bigger threat down the line or something like that. And it seems like the people who know a little bit more about the industry are talking about this, and they're saying that this is not just a cameo, that it's not just like a quick flashback scene, that this is a character playing a central role in the story of this series, that there will be more James Spader than just one little flashback or one little kind of conversation or whatever, that this will be some sort of a voice in Vision's head or something like that, a software, a program gone wrong or whatever, that's going to sort of lead him down the path that this show is going to take him. So I think that raises my interest level a lot, knowing that it's not just a cameo, that it'll be something that actually does give Spader some time to really lean back into the character and do something with it. So yeah, I mean, we're kind of playing the hits a little bit at Marvel, right? I mean, we're bringing Downey back, we're bringing Spader back, you're bringing Hugh Jackman back, like you're bringing some of these people who have played these legacy roles back into the fold, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. I mean, that can be exciting, and it can bring people back to the franchise that maybe haven't been as interested lately. And I think for most people, when they hear about the Vision series, maybe they're not super crazy about it. Maybe if they didn't watch WandaVision especially, but you hear, all right, it's going to have connections to Age of Ultron. I kind of remember seeing that movie in theaters. Like, maybe you can kind of get the ball rolling a little bit. But I would imagine we'll see some West Coast Avengers influence here from the comics run. And who knows, maybe we'll even get an appearance by Elizabeth Olsen. Maybe we'll get some type of a flashback or something like that in this series. So yeah, I mean, we still got until 2026, but I think everything's looking really interesting for this series on the horizon.
I couldn't be more excited for this announcement. Like, I have been a long champion of Age of Ultron, and people like to, poke fun at it and call it Weekend at Ultron, and that's fair. Jay, to your point, there really was the potential promise for that character, and it never really felt like that was delivered. So I can't help but look at the timing of this announcement. And again, Jay, you mentioned the fact that we're bringing back RDJ, and it really does feel like a little bit of a greatest hits and a return to form for Marvel. So I wonder how much of an influence those announcements that were made at San Diego Comic-Con, in addition to D23, how much of an influence those had on convincing James Spader to come back, because if they knew about this a long time ago, why don't you announce that at Comic-Con? Why don't you announce that at D23? And this is not the first time we've seen Ultron come back since Age of Ultron. Those that have watched What If remember that a variant of Ultron played a significant role in that series. And no, he was not voiced by James Spader there, but the other quotes from this article that stood out to me, I can't remember if it was Jack Schaefer or if it was Terry Matalas, but someone involved with this series they mentioned how WandaVision and Agatha All Along and then this Vision series are all going to be part of like a quote-unquote trilogy, and they're going to have themes that tie together as well. And I think back to when we had that initial marketing and first few episodes of WandaVision, there was the built-in mystery. People were like, it's Mephisto who is the one manipulating all these events. And like, I remember I suspected Dormammu could even be in there as well, but I really thought that they were going to bring Ultron back into the fold there with all the digital glitching and everything like that happening in Wanda's Hex. So again, we'll have to see what exactly they do with the character. Is this going to be a one and done in terms of this Vision series? I personally hope not. Ultron has a long-standing history in the comics and against the Avengers. So yeah, we're getting Doom, who is a character we've wanted to see for a really long time. But albeit, again, we don't know what version of that character we're getting. So I think if you bring back Ultron and really, double down and invest your interest in that, I think it could be really, really successful, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I had a theory when we first watched the Age of Ultron way back in the day on the MCU cast. I think it was literally our reaction cast, that Vision, he talks to Ultron in that final beautiful moment of that movie where he talks to Ultron. He's like, I don't want to destroy you. You are something beautiful and unique. I don't want to destroy you. and then he goes to shoot him, and then you just see a yellow light appear, which is the Mind Stones activating, and you assume he's killing the last Ultron bot. He's like, "You're the last one," and he kills him. And I had a theory on our reaction episode that, like, what if, though, that is the Mind Stone, literally like where Ultron came from?
Yeah.
What if it just reabsorbed him? You know what I mean? What if it saved his file to the Mind Stone or to Vision's programming? And I've been saying that for, like, whatever, 10 years or however long it's been since Age of Ultron. And I love that, like, there's a little bit of, like, maybe my idea was right. Come on, Terry Matalas. Me and Terry Matalas think a lot alike. I think he had my same idea.
You're unbearably naive. Sorry.
It could be a cool Jekyll and Hyde discovery thing for Vision to go on, where he has this voice in his head, the angel on one shoulder, the devil on the other. And two, I think back to the, when did that series? 2012, I think, Vision comic series where he creates his family.
Tom King,
like,
if
this
I'm not
could
mistaken.
very much be, a door into that kind of story, which we read those and did a retrospective about WandaVision with those comics, but it wasn't really what those comics were. I think that Vision, because he's an android, he's always on that precipice of being a villain. So what do you do if you reintroduce the code that was dark and negative?
Well, especially when he's starting from such a neutral place, like that's like as that character who he is, and kind of like a blank slate of programming. I also think it's just what a great way to lead back toward Marvel connectivity, to have a great post credits if they have a plan where, like, the whole story is him sort of like dealing with his darker nature and his more lighter nature and sort of deciding between them, and then just like any good Marvel story, he chooses the light eventually, but then you find out that program somehow slipped out into the world, you know what I mean? Like, and you get that post credits where Ultron is still alive, and that leads to whatever Marvel thing that should lead to. I think that would be a really fun. That would be a post-credit sequence that would get me hyped to know if that character was sticking around. Oh, yeah. All right. Up next, The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, the upcoming animated feature film, has been a long-standing and recurring inhabitant of our news docket and conversations, but we were finally treated to our first significant look via the official trailer released by Warner Brothers last week. In addition to having the animation showcased, we got our first inklings of the story and characters, with a botched marriage proposal serving as the backdrop for the conflict. Anime is new territory for the world of Middle-earth, so the trailer has been met with mixed reactions. How are we feeling about our first look at the War of the Rohirrim?
Feeling generally pretty good. I think as long as multiverse news has been a thing, we have been discussing this project in some form or another for the entirety of our existence here. So it's one that I've been incredibly excited for, and I remain incredibly excited for. Now, as we described in the rundown there, anime is new for Middle-earth, but I've said this before, animation is not new for Middle-earth, so this is a little bit of a return to form in terms of thinking about those 70s Rankin Bass films, and where, a lot of people had their first exposure to The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Now, having said all of that, I will fully admit, while I enjoyed this trailer, there is a little bit of a disconnect. Having grown up on those Peter Jackson films and being so used to that world building and aesthetic, I actually think it might have been a little bit of a mistake to show so much of the live action throwbacks there, because I think it just contributed to that disconnect that I eventually felt when I started to see the animation, which is stunning, which is beautiful, which looks great, but it did take me like the better part of a good minute before I started to recognize, those are Oliphants, those are different settings, those are different, factions that I've seen in the world of Middle-earth. So, jury's still out about how this thing is going to be received in terms of how it might perform at the box office. It is coming out in late December, so I can't help but think back to the animated feature that won the Oscar last year, and that was The Boy and the Heron. And I have to imagine this is going to perform pretty similarly to that. You've got the built-in audience of diehards that are going to watch anything Lord of the Rings, and then you've got, anime has become more and more successful in the United States in theatrical releases. We see it every year. There's at least a couple anime films that we're talking about doing surprisingly well. So I don't think this is going to like knock the doors down or be the future of the Lord of the Rings by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think it's going to be a solid entry, and it's going to have some good conversations going around it. And last thing I'll say here is, I guess as long as we've been discussing this, we've known that the director is going to be this gentleman named Kinji Kamiyama, but I didn't know until this trailer came out that he was the person that directed my favorite episode of Star Wars Visions across both seasons, The Ninth Jedi. So knowing that and how that episode, it was kind of the same thing. There was that little bit of a disconnect. It was like, oh, this feels like, Studio Ghibli in Star Wars. But once you get past like that 5-minute mark and the disconnect dissipates, it's so good. Like I love that episode so much. I still want to see live action interpretations of those characters. So, hopefully this can do the same thing for Lord of the Rings. And once people they're, in the theater and they sit through 10, 15 minutes and they get accustomed to it, this might be one of the finest entries in the lore of Middle Earth that we've ever had. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by how the box office will turn out for this movie, because it's just such an unknown. Like you said, it's you've got Lord of the Rings fans, and I don't know how many of those who are fans of the trilogy will necessarily want to specifically go to the theater for an animated Lord of the Rings movie. Like, will they carry that over? Or will it be an example of something that they're interested in, but they're sort of thinking about, I'll wait till this comes to streaming, Sure. I'll wait till this comes to Max or whatever, and watch it at home. So I think it is a test a little bit. Not of Lord of the Rings. I think it's a test a little bit more of anime
Sure.
and animation, but anime more specifically in the theater experience, and seeing how that translates stateside, and taking a big property like Lord of the Rings and putting it into an anime form is just, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered there. How many of your anime, like hardcore anime fans, are going to go to the theater and see it and not wait for streaming, or not wait for it to be on their screens at home? And then same for Lord of the Rings fans. And again, I think it's sort of an unknown. I mean, I think the trailer looks beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I think the lore seems really cool. The story seems really interesting. Like, I think all of that checks out. It's just, and that's coming from somebody who doesn't really even watch anime that much. Like, I was still very intrigued by the trailer, but still, it's also entering a very crowded space. It's entering December, which you're going to have Mufasa, you're going to have Craven, you're going to have
Gladiator 2.
Well, yeah, Gladiator 2. Yeah, but still November and kind of into that December. You're going to have Sonic 3. Like, you're going to have a lot of movies crowding that space, and it's like, which one is going to get squeezed out at the end of the day? So, again, it's kind of a wait and see for me in terms of box office. I'm definitely intrigued by it. It's something that I think I want to go see in the theater, just out of curiosity. But I'm just really intrigued on what kind of haul this thing is going to have at the box office, and if we're going to consider it a success or not, depending on that.
Right.
All the geeky franchises and, as we say, our favorite fictional universes have tried this now. Like, they're all trying to get like into the animation game in this modern time of like it being they want to flood the zone with content, but they're also trying to back off on budgets because of the streaming wars have kind of like it's been a war of attrition, and there's not a lot of like money being infused into these companies anymore. They're kind of like, It's not a great setup. I heard this analysis a few weeks ago of like what Netflix did to streaming, and it was scary, because basically they were like, TV used to be a thing where you had ads and you had a bunch of terrible TV shows that were just full of like kind of like non-scripted like game shows and like reality TV, and then Netflix came out with all this interesting content that was like really high dollar, and then everyone else followed suit, and it was like a trap. And then Netflix is now the place where it's like reality shows and game shows, and we all watch it, like a ton of it, and like everyone else is trying to do the prestige TV thing. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just thought that was really interesting analysis of that whole like, it's like they juked them. They were like, whoops. But I think it's a terrible trailer because they showed so much. They showed some of the best shots from Lord of the Rings up top. Like, remember how cool this is? Mm-hmm. Here's a cartoon. Like, I know that'll be, people love animation, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's great animation, but like, they're trying really hard to just draw that line, draw that connection, make all those Lord of the Rings fans from 30 years ago or whatever it was, 20 years ago, I guess, like come back. Yeah, it's pretty close. It's getting close. But they want all those people to come back and buy into this and give it that, make it a real Lord of the Rings property and not just an animated afterthought, I guess. Sure. And I just don't know that was the way to do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. It felt like, I think it might have worked better if they did a character that we know and followed their story in animation or something like that, something different. This is being characters that are removed by, what is it, centuries or something like that.
I think it's like almost a couple hundred years or something before the events. Yeah.
And being animated, I just think it's really hard to draw that connection for people. But I'm hopeful based on your analysis of his work on the Star Wars series. Hopefully this will be awesome.
I thought showing the movie footage was jarring because I knew what I was supposed to be watching, and that being the first thing was, right. I was like, wait, this isn't for me. That's my take on this film. I think that because the world of Tolkien right now is, we've got the Peter Jackson films, we've got Rings of Power, which is like separate but equal kind of a thing, and then I think it makes sense for them to get into animation for sure, but I think it's becoming like DC and their Elseworlds, where it's like, but this doesn't all have to connect. It's okay if it doesn't, especially when you have all these different studios who are making these things. And so I'm sure it will do well eventually. I don't know in the US if it'll hit really hard, but I could see it definitely growing, like when it gets to streaming and stuff like that.
Yeah. On that note, too, remember in 2026 we have that Hunt for Gollum movie coming out as well, and that's supposedly connected to the trilogy.
Starting to film too.
So you've got that happening. That's live action. Andy Serkis is involved in that. It's that's a good point. Like, we've got a lot of irons in the fire with Lord of the Rings a little bit, and it's like, at what point are we maybe overextending the property a little bit?
One thing you brought up, Matt, is like you said you would have preferred like we follow a character that's recognizable, but and again, I like this trailer, but I do think in terms of like this disconnect I'm talking about, I think they should have showcased maybe more orcs, more dwarves, more elves, just help us feel like this really is like Lord of the Rings, because it's a lot of human characters. And like there was one guy who was like, is he a dwarf? I can't really tell. And then you see the Oliphants, but still it's like, I know those are Oliphants, but do they really look like Oliphants? And they did do the thing where they're implementing some 3D animation with the 2D animation. There were a couple of moments that didn't really jive with me, but there's still time to get that stuff sorted out, because when they do it effectively, I love that kind of stuff. But
yeah. Well, first time I ever watched Lord of the Rings, I kept finding myself completely unsurprised, and what I realized was that like a lot of the things that I had watched my entire life were based on Lord of the Rings, you know what I mean? The stories were kind of, at this point in my life, I'd seen so many stories based on this story. This story felt trite, even though when it was written, obviously it was inspired. And I think that is a problem for the Lord of the Rings series in general. Whenever you're leaving those main characters, what is the thing you get from Lord of the Rings you don't get anywhere else? And it's like, I guess the Ring of Power and the characters, and like Sauron or whatever. Right? Sauron. Sauron. And like, it's just kind of like this, so many things since then have taken orcs and elves and hobbit-like characters, dwarves, like, and ran with them, that it's hard. I watched this and I was like, this could be anything. This does not have, they showed a ring at one point and I was like, oh, it's a ring. That means it's Lord of the Rings. Like, everything else was just like two human tribes, and they didn't even touch on the kind of race, the fantasy races we know from Lord of the Rings, like you said. Right. Like, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Well, the main story's over too, right? I mean, we've seen the trilogy. There's not really a lot to build out. Like, you're not going to bring Sauron back for round 2. There's not going to be like The Empire Strikes Back or whatever. Like, so you kind of have to build around a story that's been completed. And it's like, if you're not going to remake the trilogy, which it's not time for that yet, then like you kind of have to find pockets, or you have to go way back. You got to do the prequels, you know, you got to do character studies. Like if you're going to build it out, you can't really build it around the flagship, because the flagship, it's sailed, it's done. And so it's kind of, it's in this place, and the author, he's not here to contribute more to that story. You know, it's not like Game of Thrones or something where the author still here can contribute to it or whatever. So it is a little bit of a unique position.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a Game of Thrones nugget, I have to say, because it was really funny last week. Puberty was like, George R.R. Martin was asked, what would you change about your books if you could? And he was like, I would finish them. And the top comment was like, that's only on you, my guy. Like, it was so funny. I sent it to so many people. It made me laugh so hard. Like, what are you saying?
Yeah, you're not getting that book. I'm telling you, you're not getting it.
Oh my gosh, it was
Stop waiting on
it. Anyway, sorry. I just had to throw that out there.
That's pretty great. All right, up next, whether you're for, against, or undecided when it comes to Robert Downey Jr.'s casting as Doctor Doom for the MCU, there's no denying that the move has catapulted the cinematic universe back to the pinnacle of the zeitgeist and surrounding conversations. The actor has been quiet, save the 4 words he uttered at San Diego Comic-Con, new mask, new task, until last Tuesday's episode of the Award Chatter podcast from The Hollywood Reporter, where he shared insights into Bob Iger and Kevin Feige's direct involvement into the decision, with the latter expressing a desire to, quote, get Victor Von Doom right. Elsewhere, this week's episode of the official Marvel podcast shared a slew of comments from cast members of the MCU's upcoming films, including Captain America: Brave New World, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four: First Steps. While some of these statements are more innocuous than others, many fans have taken them as clear indications of what to expect from these characters and movies. What stood out to us?
I think that last bit is just kind of it. The clips that they shared of the cast talking about those movies set the tone for what each of those movies is going to be. So First Steps is family focused, and it's about being together, and then Thunderbolts has this really kind of fun bro-y vibe to it, because they were definitely focusing on like Red Guardian and Russell Wyatt's character and all of that. And then Anthony Mackie is talking about the complicated world of Captain America that he's playing. So they were very specific to the tone of the films, and I think those are all things we expected from them, but it's good affirmation. Note to the official Marvel podcast, clean up your audio if you're going to cut it in like that. It sounded pretty janky. Sorry you don't have a Matthew Carroll on your side.
No.
As to the Victor Von Doom stuff with RDJ, I think it's smart for him to be pretty tight-lipped about this, because he's not stupid, and he knows that while this isn't divisive, it's just left a lot of question marks in a lot of people's heads, a lot of fans. And I think I stand by what I said back when we talked about it. His phrase is new mask, same task, and I think he has been brought in to treat this character carefully and with the kind of rigor and detail that Kevin Feige likes to see in these things. He knows the comics, he knows the lore, and he has the vision that we probably want to see coming out of Doom. So it makes sense. It's not really earth-shattering news, but it's nice to know kind of that guiding hand is there like we want it to be.
For sure. I saw a lot of people pointing out that this may settle the idea that this is Victor Von Doom and not a Tony Stark variant. But I don't know that it even does that. Like, maybe.
Yeah. They just got to come out and say that if that's what it is. At this, They just got to be clear about it.
Do they?
I don't know.
It's creating so much conversation and so much buzz.
I think they do.
Yeah, well, yeah. No,
eventually.
I read those comments, and like I saw the online conversation. I saw some YouTubers, some that I respect more so than others. I think, Matt, I know you've mentioned new rock stars over on the MCU cast. I don't know if we bring it up too often over here. I don't watch every video they put out, but I watch videos from time to time, because I do agree. I think they're doing something a little bit different than we are. They're doing comprehensive breakdowns and theorizing and whatnot. But I saw a video from them this week after these comments came out, and they were just like, we know exactly what what the plan is for RDJ's return, and it just rubbed me the wrong way. It's just like don't go like stating this as gospel. Like this is speculation. So call it for what it is. Like, and I just maintain there's no way that they're spending upwards of $100 million to bring Robert Downey Jr. back. And if you want a comic accurate version of Doctor Doom, that mask is not coming off. And if it's coming off very, very seldomly. And you don't bring back the most recognizable face of the MCU for something like that. It's going to play into the fact that we know him as Tony Stark, and he's got to be some kind of variance. Like, even if he knows himself as Victor Von Doom and Doctor Doom and doesn't know his origins, he's connected to Tony Stark in some fashion. So, beyond all that, Haley, I agree with you that I thought some of the comments from the other films kind of stood out to me. The Thunderbolts, particularly the bro-y atmosphere that you refer to, I think it's because they had...
They had all the bros.
They had the bros. They had Sebastian Stan, they had David Harbour, and they had Wyatt Russell all together. And you really did get that vibe that they are bros like that. But Sebastian Stan made a comment about Bucky being in Congress. And I don't know if that means that he's a statesman or a congressman or what, but that was certainly interesting. Yeah, he said, like, the other guys said their piece about what they're going to be doing, like Red Guardian's in a bad place. He's, kind of slovenly and what have you. John Walker is like constantly looking up bad press on himself. And then Bucky's just like, Bucky's in Congress. So they're all in a bad place, but he's in Congress. So take that for whatever it means. But then the other part that stuck out to me is like, highlighting some of the women from the Thunderbolts. Hannah John Kamen, who plays Ava Starr, our ghost, she mentioned how she is alone and she's a survivor. So thinking back what we've seen from that character, where we last left her off, she still was involved with Bill Foster, Lawrence Fishburne's Bill Foster. So I suspected that he was going to be a part of the proceedings in this movie. I don't know if he's been officially cast or not, but it actually sounds like he may not be in the picture. So I'll be curious to see if we get any of the gaps filled in there. And I know I'm being long-winded here, so just to kind of finally wrap it up, I really did love the comments between Eben Moss-Bachrach and Joseph Quinn as the other side of the Fantastic Four. Pedro and Vanessa got to show off some chemistry and some flirtation and stuff like that, which really landed. But I love this brotherly dynamic. They were talking about, doing sit-ups for each other to try and impress each other with their physique and whatnot. And that just sounds exactly what I want from, Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm. And I think we saw it in the promotional artwork. It looked like, Johnny Storm had just like cracked some kind of wise crack at Ben Grimm. So continues to be one of the ones I'm most excited for.
Absolutely. I can't believe this Congress thing. We had someone wrote in our feedback last week, a few weeks ago on the MCU cast, and they asked like, hey, what if, now that Ross is the president, he'll need a new Secretary of Defense. What about Bucky? And I was like, there's no way, because he'd have to get congressional approval, and he's like a Soviet assassin for the last 60 years. Like,
no, we got short memory. We got short memories.
We apparently and apparently like for real. So like he's a I don't know if that's that's weird. That's really weird if he's a congressman, and if his past is known and he became a congressman, that's very strange. Also, like I just don't see that in his character. I gotta think that was a joke. I don't know. That's weird.
It was Sebastian, so you never know, because the way he's always kind of like, I don't know, like maybe I'm in Congress and doing stuff over there. I don't know. Like, the way he talks is so funny. Oh my God, Sebastian Stan.
One thing about the official Marvel podcast that I've found very funny is it's clear whenever someone comes on mic, they have been told the one piece of information they're allowed to divulge. Like every time they bring up something, true. it's like, hey, yeah, I'm in Congress. And it's like, that's it. And they will not talk about it further. And he's like, yeah, I am sad and looking at like, it's literally like Feige with whatever, the Feige snipers have told them one thing. You get one thing, and here is the exact words. Like they've got like one of those little ransom letters that they have to read.
Oh, the cutting room floor of that podcast is just full. It's littered with information. They just get in there and carve that thing up to death.
I don't think so at all. I think that thing's basically scripted. Like it seems very much like they're like, okay, this is the stuff you're allowed to say. Let's like give the exact piece of information we want to tease, and that is all. and don't say anything else.
Mackie's over there with like crib notes on his arm. He's like, okay, yeah, so things are bad. It's not a good time. We got Harrison Ford. That's cool.
One thing I did really like was him talking about his new Falcon.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
And it just kind of,
Joaquin.
it kind of felt like he was shouting out the new actor who's going to be playing Falcon. He's been in that position before where he was the new sidekick for Captain America, right, and having to be accepted. And now there's a new guy doing that same role. And he's like, I'm going to make sure to show a lot of love to that guy. And like, that's cool. Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. Okay. Ted Lasso. Everybody, Ted Lasso. If you haven't seen it, you've probably led a worse life the last, 5 years. Like it's a show you need to watch. Ted Lasso, Apple TV Plus's celebrated sports comedy, has made major moves toward finally kicking off a long-awaited fourth season, we learned via a Deadline exclusive. The show's original 3-season run, which concluded more than a year ago and garnered 13 Emmy Awards, left the door open for the future, but that was left largely in the hands of the star Jason Sudeikis, who originated the character on Saturday Night Live shorts. I didn't even know that. That's cool. Now, Warner Brothers Television, the studio for the series, has picked up options for 3 original cast members: Hannah Waddingham, Brett Goldstein, and Jeremy Swift, with more expected to be announced soon. Does the prospect of a 4th season have us begging the coach to put us in?
Yeah, Ted Lasso is great. Totally agree with you there. If you've never gotten into it before, you don't have to be someone who's into sports or anything like that, or into comedies necessarily. It's got a little bit of everything. It is a great show.
You just have to have a heart.
Yeah,
you just need a heart. If you have a heart in your chest, you'll like it.
But, ultimately,
explains
one
why
of the things... She's like, well, I feel nothing, so makes sense.
Oh, those who's in Whoville. Damn them.
But what's important to keep in mind here, I saw a lot of outlets that were more of the clickbait variety sort of reporting this as like a 4th season of Ted Lasso is confirmed. And we're not quite there yet. What this basically means is that, these actors and actresses are represented by unions, and they have contracts. And typically in these contracts, they have option years. So a show will go out, or a studio will go out, sign an actor to like a 3-season deal with a 4th season option or something like that. And so then the plan is that if the show sort of goes sideways, you could easily get out of that last season, right? You can choose to pick it up or not. So what this means is that Apple TV Plus has picked up the options of some of the main characters, but only the ones that are represented by a British actors union, right? And so to complete the deck, to get like Sudeikis and some of these other key characters that are represented by SAG-AFTRA, Apple's going to have to get those contracts rolling with SAG-AFTRA too. So we're kind of in that middle point where they've gotten some of the team together, but they still have some key pieces they have to get on board before they can actually make the thing happen. And until that happens, it's not at the finish line yet, right? It's not confirmed. But what this does tell us is that clearly Apple TV Plus is interested in making another season. I would imagine the cast is probably interested in making another season. They all seem to love the product. And at the end of the day, like, Apple TV Plus makes, I think, great content. Like, I think they have some excellent shows, like a great just buffet of shows to choose from like different types of styles, good limited series, like good shows that are on a run that are getting new seasons. But they're still not streamed that much. It's one of the lower end on the street. They pump a lot of money into their content, but their streaming service is not really bringing in the dollars that it should be. And so they really kind of need Ted Lasso on some level. It's their flagship show. It's the one that really has gotten the most pop of all of their shows. Yeah. And they need that show back on their platform because they're having a problem. They're having a subscriber problem. People are coming in. Maybe they get the trial. They watched the Monarch Legacy of Monsters or whatever, and then they peace. Or they come in and they watch Severance season 1, and then they bounce. Like they're not sticking around.
No, Jay, remember nobody watched Severance. Our Spotify poll said
I mean, I'm trying to squeeze it in there every once in a while, but maybe not successfully.
Messaging.
So yeah, Apple TV Plus, they need need to convince people to come back. Like they need
Yeah.
people in, and Ted Lasso can certainly do that. It's their most popular show by far. So yeah, I think
1,000%.
it'll happen. I mean, I think it'll happen. I think we'll have season 4 of this show, but there's still a few things that have to happen first.
When I watched, you're totally right. I think this is the only show in my mind at Apple TVs that has like broken through to the zeitgeist. Like people talk about this show, people love this show. I love a lot of the Apple TV content, but like I've almost never talked to anyone about it. You know what I mean? Like I love For All Mankind. It's so good, but like I don't know anyone else that watches it.
My dad watches it.
It's just Oh yeah, give me your dad's number.
Yeah.
We'll talk. I have one guy that's in my band like every 3 months. He's like a fill-in bass player. He's in like every once in a while. He's on a gig, and he's the only guy I know that watches it. And just because he recommended it to me, and so we'll be in the car. I'm like, oh, did you see this season yet? Yeah, let's talk all about it. But I think when Ted Lasso ended with the 3rd season, I said at the time, they have a really great path to move forward with this show, with or without Jason Sudeikis. The way they left the show off, not to spoil, I won't say what happened, but it was a really great point that they could have continued. And I always said that even if Jason Sudeikis did not want to return, and if it was the end for Ted Lasso, I literally, like the way it ended, I thought it was going to end with them saying, next season, look for the new show AFC Richmond. Like I really thought that it was going to be like, because that just seemed like what it was doing. It set up a lot of things that could have continued with or without him. And I think, and the 3 actors that are announced here are the 3, or that are their contracts were renewed. They are the 3 people who kind of run the office at the team. So let's say they jump 5 years, 10 years even, and Ted Lasso's not there, but they have the 3 main office people who run the office and management side, and you've got even some of the same players, some different players. You could really like kind of revive the show. Obviously, you want as much of the original DNA as possible, but I really think there was definitely an opening when the show ended to just keep going, and they didn't, but it's only been a year or 2, so I think they could have definitely come back with something strong, and I want them to. It's a great show. It's a great show.
Jay took my take that this is a grab for subscribers, and we know it is because Apple TV came out and said we're losing a ton of money, especially I think on their films though. Like I think it was the movies that Apple has produced that have really not made them any money. And so it makes sense perhaps that they're going to focus more on TV because their shows are good. A lot of them are very ethereal. Like there's not necessarily a wide gamut of things. It's kind of very genre based. Even Shrinking, which is my favorite Apple TV show and is a comedy, has a lot of these dark undertones to it, and it's more of a dramedy than anything else. But I would be curious though, because this kind of thing interests me. Like, so if you watched Ted Lasso on Apple TV when it ended, did you end your subscription? Probably not, because we don't really do that much. So would this be more of a grab for new subscribers to be like, hey, everybody was talking about this show 3 years ago or whenever it would come out, and don't you want to be part of it? It's coming back. Like, I don't know, that kind of the demographic of who signs up for a streaming service and when and why, I find fascinating.
They're waiting on all those subscribers that are going to leave Netflix, after Stranger Things ends. They're like, come on over. They're like, we know what you're waiting on. We know you're waiting on Stranger Things season 5.
Yeah. I didn't think I was going to have a take on this one because I've only seen the pilot for Ted Lasso, and I liked it, but it didn't just grab. I think it was overhyped. I think the conversation around it was like, I overhyped it. So when I saw it, I was entertained, but was not just grabbed the way a lot of people are. But what I find more interesting is this conversation around Apple TV Plus and how successful are they, and what does their retention look like in terms of their subscribers. And I do think, listening to the conversation here, I honestly think one of the best things they can do is their app icon needs a facelift. It's black and white. It has a professional kind of classic clean look to it, but it's not very eye-catching. Like when I think about my array of little icons there, the Hulu one is more attractive, the Max with its purple there. So, Apple has long standing been known for their branding, and they've got, they usually do a pretty clean and sleek kind of design, but I think they got to do something to make that color pop, because as we're talking about just the extensive catalog of great stuff they have, Ted Lasso I started but didn't finish. Shrinking is another one I've seen a handful of episodes and loved, but I just haven't gone back to. Dark Matter I'm about halfway through and I want to go back and finish it, but it's really only those ones that like Severance and Silo that just like grabbed me, and I binged, one after the other. So there's definitely potential there, but I think it comes down to the marketing. So we'll see.
I love that take, Jay Scotty. Ted Lasso may be returning. I just want to take this moment to shit on the icon of Apple
Is that how it
TV.
came
Like,
across?
what are you doing? No, I'm just teasing.
When they shut down HBO Max and called it Max, I was public on this podcast that I mourned the purple aesthetic of HBO.
Oh,
Max.
I said purple. It's
Yeah.
blue now, isn't it? Yeah,
That was a
good
beautiful app.
Yeah,
that was a
blue.
beautiful app.
The purple
Bring
is
back
better.
the purple. You have your chance.
I wonder if it's because they're trying to stand out against the Roku background. Like, I wonder if that's why they went with blue instead of purple. I don't know, because a lot of people use Roku. I want to say about Ted Lasso, if this is more of a pitch to Jay Scotty specifically and anyone else who fell off after one or two episodes, one of the best things about Ted Lasso is the character development that happens. Sure. And so it is a show that's fun to watch. Like, it's a good comedy, a lot of good funny stuff, but like the character development that happens in a good comedy is just so... That's what makes it like those heartfelt, emotional moments that you don't get as much until like you've seen a season.
Sure.
It's one of those shows, and I know people say this all the time. Like, give it a few episodes, give it a season, and they're easy, they're digestible. They're 20 minutes, they're great, great show.
Brett Goldstein, he was the guy that popped up as Hercules in the Thor: Love and Thunder.
That's right. Yeah,
post credits. Okay.
Yeah,
thought so.
Yeah, and he's one of my favorite characters on the show for sure. I love him.
He also wrote part of Shrinking.
Oh,
I think it was his.
It's all in the family. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. He great. I like Shrinking a lot too. Great. It's a very similar vibe, I think. Like very emotional, character developy with just like silly comedy stuff in the middle. All right, guys. Well, we are on Patreon. You should go to there and give us money. That's the thing.
Please.
We make the show, and really it is supported by your Patreon dollars. It is what keeps us being able to make the news every week. So keep us going with a $4 subscription over at patreon.com/multiverse newscast.
Also, should be said, it's not just giving us money. We also give you things. So we do
right.
giveaways, and we have some exclusive content like short mini episodes, and you can download ad-free episodes over there as well. So,
Yes.
it's worth your money.
You can even set it up in most podcatchers where you get the ad-free episodes. You have your own personal feed from Patreon that goes to your ad-free feed. So it's pretty great. You can have it right there in your app, ad-free.
Yeah, that's a good point. This week is probably not a good one for it because the news ended up being so packed and we're a little long run here, but I think we're due for a tangent talk. I don't think it's going to happen this week, but if you want to, give us ideas for a tangent talk, the Patreon is the place to do that.
Well, and me and Jay Scotty are going to be in the same place this week.
That's right.
Being at DragonCon, so we'll probably make some random multiverse news stuff if whatever we think of or see. If we see some good news out there at DragonCon live, we might go live and throw up some stuff. So keep an eye out for that, or it might be on the Patreon. Might be some Patreon exclusive stuff. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on how drunk we get. I get.
It's a lot of what ifs in that thought.
Also, somebody tell them about our social media accounts. We're Multiverse Newscast on most things, right?
Yes, we are Multiverse Newscast on Instagram, and we are MV Newscast on Twitter, or X, I guess. So come on over and give us a follow, even if you're not active on those accounts. Like if you have an Instagram, but you don't use that, still go give us a follow because it just helps our online presence a little bit.
Yeah, help the show out, guys. I really appreciate it. And we're going to be back. We got a great lightning round with lots of packed stuff this week. So stick around. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Multiverse News. So before we left, we were talking about all those stories, but now let's talk about our Spotify poll. I don't know why I felt like I didn't recap what we were doing before we left. That was
You never know. Some people's favorite part of the episode might be the back half. They skip all.
Maybe they skip right here.
That's true. That's
Lightning
true.
round only.
They're the same people who like the previously on of every episode of TV. That's their favorite
Like I like
part.
to get my dinner first and then my appetizers. It's just a weird person all around.
Hitting that skip ahead 30 seconds until I hear those ads again.
We don't judge.
No, we don't kink shame around here, as we like to say. Our Spotify poll this week was, will you see Craven in theaters? And I was excited about this. I know it's not a great result, but I was still excited. We had 37% of you said yes, 63% of you said no. I think that's pretty good. I really do.
It's like Mean Girls where they're like, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's like, stop trying to make the Sonyverse happen. That's how I feel about this.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just like that there's so many people in our audience that even though we have, I probably talk it up more than anybody else, but like we've all badmouthed the Sonyverse and the things they've done, the horrible atrocities that have been visited upon us by the Sonyverse.
We all saw Madam Web.
We all saw Madam Web, but we all still have hope. We're just a hopeful people over here in Pandaverse, right?
Try to be.
Most days.
Sure.
They're still 37% hanging on for Craven. I love it.
I know, but you also got to remember
movie theater subscriptions like Scotty and I.
Our audience is a little biased too. Like people that listen to our audience, they like the movies, they like comic book type stuff. So 37% of our audience, I don't know, general audience, it's going to be pretty low.
Oh, for sure. This movie's, well, you know what? I don't know.
I feel like most of our audience is like, you know what? I'll go see it.
I think you're right. Our audience is more likely to go see any geeky movie that's based on a comic. But I also think there's something to be said for like our audience is in the conversation and knows the difference between the Sonyverse and MCU. True. And I think there's a lot of people out there, if it's a cool Marvel character, the movie looks good, and they market it in a way that doesn't even allow Sydney Sweeney to know she's not in the MCU, then like it might work. It might work.
They're like, hey, Spider-Man might be in it. You have to find out.
We'll have to do this poll again once they inevitably announce the promotional collectible popcorn bucket for Craven.
Ooh. What's it going to be? Like a lion's head?
I was thinking Aaron Taylor Johnson's abs.
I would buy that. Yeah. Lick the butter off of it.
All right. We got to move on to some stories before Haley gets herself in trouble.
Hey, Dune started it all.
That's right. All right, we got a lightning round coming up. I'm going to read a story. Everyone on the panel, including me, get to chime in with their name to claim the story. And if you're the first to chime in, you get to respond to the story. And then once per lightning round, you get to give a rebuttal. Here we go. This is a rumor. First, starting out strong with a rumor. Scooper Daniel Reichman is claiming that a fourth Spider-Man film will indeed feature a multiversal story and should start filming next year. Matt, I heard this was what Sony wanted. I don't know if I think we may have talked about it on the show here.
We did, yeah.
I've seen it on some podcasts and some various breakdowns, but it's apparently one of the arguments that's been going on is that Sony wanted to make wanted to make No Way Home 2, basically. They wanted to bring like those three Spider-Men in again and maybe bring in more people and make it a big multiversal party. I don't know that just because it's a multiversal story, it will have those three Spider-Men in it again, but it seems like that might be what they're going for. But we'll see. That's the thing. The crazy thing is, Sony, with no participation from MCU at all, could make a multiversal story with all three of those Spider-Men and all of their other Sony characters and make it feel really connected to the multiverse of the MCU, and it would technically be because of but they could just do that, and that's kind of wild that they have that power right now.
Scotty with a rebuttal. The only part of that I might bristle against a little bit is we don't know the full details of what the original agreement between Marvel Studios and Sony was, so they may have said, hey, if this character is appearing in movies that are connected to our own, you can't do anything independent with him without our express permission or without our sign off, which I definitely think is probably a strong possibility there. But again, this is a rumor, so not confirmed in any way. And looking at Daniel RPK, Daniel Reichman, his track record is pretty good, but he's been right about some things. He's been wrong about some things. But looking at the timeline here, I do think this makes sense. We've been talking about, knowing that we're headed into Doomsday and Secret Wars and bringing back RDJ, like how do you not have Tom Holland Spider-Man interacting with, his hero? If not, it's a real shame. So I, for one, I was hoping that we would have more of a street level story, Kingpin, maybe Daredevil team ups and stuff like that, because as much as Tom Holland Spider-Man we've seen, we have yet to get that classic like Spider-Man in New York. Even Homecoming, like he took the trip to DC, he wasn't in New York the whole time. So I do think the animated series My Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is hoping to scratch that itch for a lot of people, but I still would love to see a live action Spider-Man in his roots, but we'll see what we get.
Yeah, just to elucidate my point from a minute ago about the idea that like they could do that, unless they may have changed it with their new deal with Marvel Studios.
Sure,
but back when we know that Tom Holland made tearful phone calls that got them to keep him. That the reason he had to make those phone calls was they couldn't make a deal, and he was about to jump ship, and they were going to make Tom Holland movies without the MCU connection.
I didn't know that aspect of it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were like, no, yeah, we're going to do our own thing with the Spider-Man. The MCU boosted, and Tom Holland was like, no, what are you doing? Please, I want to stay. I want to be connected to Iron Man, and like they kept him. So I'm assuming that they could have changed that in the new deal they made, but I'm assuming that's still probably part of the deal. And then they might say they can't be in the 616 universe or 199999 universe, but that just means you'd have to start the movie in Andrew Garfield's universe and grab Tom Holland and bring him
That's
over,
fair. Sure.
So it's all kinds of things they could do to like work around this. Okay, A24 has released the first trailer for disaster comedy film Y2K starring Rachel Zegler. Saturday Night Live standout Kyle Mooney will direct, and it hits theaters December 6th. Matt.
Scotty.
Okay, you go first. I'll use my
Explain
rebuttal.
yourself, Scotty. That's right.
It has been a long time since I have just been immediately taken with a trailer the way I was with this one, and I kind of went into it not knowing what to expect. Obviously, I'm kind of bought in when I hear A24. I've got certain expectations, but the first third of this trailer felt like this generation's Superbad, and I love Superbad. Superbad is one of my favorite comedies of all time, and I was alive for Y2K, so, seeing this cast of characters, you've got Jaden Mardell from It Chapter 1 and 2, Julian Dennison, who was in Deadpool 2, as well as Hunt for the Wilder People, my favorite Taika Waititi, and then Rachel Zegler, who, the public opinion around her, it is what it is, but it seemed like a really solid cast of these up-and-comers and this new generation kind of going back and playing in such a fun time in our history that, most modern moviegoers are aware of on some level, but to take that comedy high school party conceit and then just flip it on its head and go into a horror comedy, it looks fantastic. It looks great. And then I didn't realize that Kyle Mooney was directing this thing. And I think he's only done one other film to my knowledge, and that was Brigsby Bear, 2017's Brigsby Bear. And that is one of my favorite movies of all time. I recommend that to everyone. I think it plays really well for this, people that are listening to this podcast and people that are just super aware when it comes to TV, movies, and pop culture. So super excited.
Yeah. Tiny butt, just to say that it's weird to see the aughts kind of become nostalgic at this point, because that's kind of where we're at, is like this feels nostalgic. It's Y2K, but you can tell that they're really playing up, like you've got the VHS tapes. They mentioned like the Tamagotchi, you got like the music is like very like, early aughts type music. Like it's made of that time, and it's made as like a nostalgic thing, almost like when I'm in my mid 30s, but like when I was a kid and like watching movies about the 80s or something, that sort of thing. So it is weird to see that, but it's also very cool. Like I love the idea of a Y2K movie where Y2K is real. Like that's hilarious. Like it's already hilarious. Like I don't even need to know more past that. It's hilarious already. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
If you're younger than 30, you don't know what Y2K was. It was you had to live through it
was a
to
vibe.
understand that people thought the world was ending for real in their brains.
Yeah,
it was
for sure.
amazing, and we all survived somehow.
I'm glad you demanded that story, Jay Scotty, because I did not like this trailer. But I also, I don't know. I just didn't enjoy it. I think part of it was this movie should be for me. It should be for me because that's literally like almost. I graduated in 2001. This is 2000 when these kids are like I was this age, and the whole movie seems like it's based on this sort of like 90s nostalgia for like 90s technology. What if all the 90s technology came back to kill you? Which I think is a very funny idea, but for some reason I didn't find any of that funny. I was watching the show. I was just like, yeah, I get it that the Tamagotchis did exist, but it just kind of felt sort of anachronistic to me and not really like it didn't hit for me. Like I wanted to be appealed to, and it was almost like but it might have just been because it was so close to my age and everything. I was like, this isn't really. I don't know. Like, but I'm glad it looks good, and I'm glad to hear you like Kyle Mooney as a director because I haven't seen anything else of his.
You got to watch Brigsby Bear. I think you will love Brigsby Bear. I smell a potential bet on the horizon. Do we want to say like what the Rotten Tomatoes score for this thing is going to be? Will it be rotten? Will it be fresh?
Ooh, well, see, I don't really bet against it. I think it probably is going to be fresh. I think the idea is great, and it's A24, so like I don't have negative feelings towards this movie or have negative like thoughts that it's going to do bad. Sure. I just I didn't like the trailer. The trailer
does have Rachel Zegler though, so that's not going against it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, the thing that I'm hoping is that the funniest stuff, because it seems like they're going for really like sci-fi comedy, and like I'm hoping that the funniest stuff they saved and they didn't waste it all, because some of the stuff was just like, isn't it funny that these things are attacking, instead of like really going into why that would be funny. So I hope it's a little deeper, I guess. I hope the jokes are a little funnier and deeper. And I hope the reason it's not that great of a trailer for me was they're saving some of that, which is the best thing to do with a comedy.
We can hope.
We can hope. But I'm glad you're excited. That excites me.
Thank you.
Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce is attached to star in Loose Cannons, an action comedy that is in the process of being set up at Lionsgate. Chad Stahelski, the John Wick filmmaker who has a first look deal with Lionsgate, is producing.
Haley's really not going to take the Travis Kelce story.
You guys, like, honestly, fine, whatever. I love Travis Kelce. If you like buddy cop kind of movies, I think that's what this sounds like. The plot is kind of actually funny sounding, where it's like unhinged cops that nobody else wants to partner with get partnered together. And I think like unhinged in a funny way, not in like a terrible murder streak kind of way. So if that's your brand of humor, I'm sure this will be fun.
We'll see. We'll see what Travis Kelce can do. Behind the camera
shut
first.
Your whole
let's just wait and see.
Scotty with a
he
rebuttal.
Keeps getting cast.
Yeah, that he does. Yeah, that he does.
Well, I'm not going to get cynical about why, but
sit down, Packers.
I heard in passing that this film was described as like Lethal Weapon, where you have Riggs and Murtaugh, but this is Riggs and Riggs. So you got Travis Kelce on the one side. I'm curious, who do we think is going to be the Riggs to his Riggs? Like,
just put Jason Kelce in there. Just do it up.
Oh, okay. When you said Jason, it made me think of Jason Mantzoukas. I could kind of see him.
Oh my god, that would actually be funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be good. All right, Anya Taylor-Joy will star in an 8-episode series adaptation of Bella Mackey's best-selling novel How to Kill Your Family for Netflix.
Jay, return to Netflix for Anya Taylor-Joy. She really rose to stardom because of The Queen's Gambit whenever she was on a limited series, so makes sense for Netflix to want to get her back into the fold again, especially for an adaptation of a best-selling novel.
Yeah, absolutely. Chick-fil-A is aggressively entering the entertainment industry, planning to launch original content on its streaming platform. According to Deadline, the fast food chain is collaborating with major production companies, focusing on family-friendly, unscripted shows, and is also negotiating content licensing and acquisitions.
Jay, I fought for this to be in here because I think it's insane and wild. But my only question is, and Scotty, I want you to respond because I'm about to say something that's not useful.
Oh, by all means.
I was about to say that. I was just going to say, like, am I going to be allowed to watch it on Sundays? Okay, go ahead.
That's
I know you
really
have something much more thoughtful to say.
No. I was going to go for a joke as well, but your joke is so much better. I was going to say every time you click the skip intro, it says my pleasure. But
oh, that's pretty good.
This makes me always think of that Parks and Rec gag at the end of the show where it's like brought to you by Chipotle, Verizon, Exxon. I don't know why.
Welcome
this made me think of that.
Welcome to your new dystopia where fast food chains own all the content that you watch. Like, welcome. You've made it. Yes. You've made it to the end.
Yep.
The streamers are so running out of money.
We really do. We're hitting a weird dystopia, guys, where like these conglomerates are doing everything, but like Chick-fil-A, like it's one thing when you've got like a Jeff Bezos who's like, I own all the money, and so I'm just going to own a version of everything. So like I have a space fleet, and I have a streaming service, and I have a thing that ships you books and everything else. But like. This is just such a leap. It's just such a weird leap. And it's not. They have a strong connection to the Christian community, and they're talking about family-friendly content. They already put out little, their kids' meals come with little, like, family-friendly coloring books and stuff that, like, they probably have a really strong in with, like, evangelical Christian movement that they appeal to it in a few different ways. And I think, like, I don't love this. I think it's terrible. I don't like it at all. It's just a fast food restaurant deciding to get into media is just insane to me. Ryan Reynolds has shared a deleted scene on social media from Deadpool and Wolverine. The scene confirms that Channing Tatum's Gambit not only survived the battle in the void, but also has a way out of the wasteland, as an interdimensional portal can be seen opening up in the reflection of Gambit's eyes. In an interview with Variety, Tatum admitted that he still wants to make a standalone Gambit movie, adding, "I've been saying that I wanted it for the last 10 years. It's in Bob Iger and Kevin Feige's hands. I pray to God."
Scotty?
It's going to be on the Chick-fil-A streaming service. Sorry.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever.
Yeah, that's right. I do feel like this is why we can't have nice things. Like, it was a great joke in the film, and yeah, I'm not entirely opposed to seeing the character return, but in a standalone movie, no. If you want to bring him back in Secret Wars as like another throwaway joke, have him like killed or vaporized instantly or something like that, sure, it'd be a great gag, but there's no way in hell you're getting a standalone movie, and if you are, it needs to be like a parody, a satire, completely tongue-in-cheek. Like, yeah.
Jay Scotty, that's amazing. You can bring him back for a second and then vaporize him immediately. That's what I want. Good stuff.
Do you think that Channing Tatum just sends Kevin Feige texts of that gif from Endgame of Jeremy Renner being like, "Don't do that. Don't give me hope."
I thought I made a name for myself here.
Kevin Feige just leaves him on red.
Okay, in a highly unusual move, Lionsgate, man, so many unusual moves on today's podcast. In a highly unusual move, Lionsgate is pulling its new trailer for Megalopolis, unveiled last week. The decision comes following controversy over critic quotes featured in the trailer, which digging by Vulture and other outlets revealed to be fabricated.
Haley, why would you do this? Why would you do this?
Yeah. Did you see the quotes too? Like how they did it? Like, so it wasn't even quotes saying that Megalopolis was good. It was quotes about his other films saying that they were bad. So like, think like, Scarface or whatever. Like, oh, this movie's so terrible. It's not going to stand the test of time. But it's supposed to be like, they hated it, but look what it is now. Like that. It's supposed to be that sort of thing. And so but they did that, but then the guys who were quoted were like, "We literally never said that," and then it just blew up. Like, yeah, like you said, why would you do this? Like, there's not a scenario where it goes right, and they were generated by AI too, by the way, so it makes it even worse.
That's even weirder. I didn't realize that they were negative comments. Lord, what are you doing? Jack Black and Paul Rudd are in early talks to star in a reimagined version of the 1997 horror film Anaconda. Tom Gormican, director of The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, is co-writing with Kevin Etten and will direct the film.
Jay, it seems like this is sort of a tongue-in-cheek remake of Anaconda. It's not a straight remake of Anaconda. It's that the characters are going to the rainforest to remake Anaconda. Like Anaconda exists, but then they get caught up in like a real life Anaconda situation, sort of like Tropic Thunder kind of thing, you know?
Yes.
And that sort of seems to be the pitch of the movie. So yeah, but I mean, Jack Black, Paul Rudd, like, you know, it's tough to get a better tandem than that if that's the kind of film vibe that you're going for, I think. It's an interesting
Have they been in
pair.
anything together before?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, seems like such a natural pairing to not have happened yet. Yeah.
Well, it's that thing of like they kind of function the same way in a movie often.
Yeah,
they
that's fair.
both are
Yeah, sure.
sort of like quirky, funny lead guy, and so like you don't normally want two of those.
Sure.
But sometimes, like in this one. According to insider Jeff Snyder, Lucasfilm originally offered the role of Master Soul in The Acolyte to Keanu Reeves, and although Reeves could not join the show due to scheduling conflicts, Lucasfilm is actively working to bring him into a Star Wars project in the future. Matt.
Star Wars Matrix.
Yeah, like it already had Carrie-Anne Moss in it. How cool would that have been? And I feel like they would have had to like draw a connection between those two characters, and with the fighting style of that first scene, maybe that would have had them do more of that fighting throughout. I don't know. That's super fun. But I think this is interesting. I don't know. You know, they say scheduling conflicts. I could see Keanu Reeves hearing about this and being like, I want to do something more. You know what I mean? Like more than this. If I'm going to be in the Star Wars universe, bring me in the Star Wars universe. He's done with John Wick, probably. And, I think this is I look forward to seeing him in the Star Wars universe.
Tiny but I think the long-time fan casting for Keanu in Star Wars has been Darth Bane, which is a book character from the Old Republic, which is like thousands and thousands of years ago. And I think it's, what's that director's name that's doing The Dawn of the Jedi?
Mangold?
James Mangold.
Yeah.
James Mangold's film is going to be a long time ago, so maybe something in that.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah. Chronicle Books is releasing Marvel Super Graphic by Tim Leong. The book is a visual guide to the Marvel Comics universe through colorful infographics and metrics.
Haley, I think I've mentioned on the show that Marvel Comics is 85 years old this year, which is pretty cool. This book speaks to me because it's very modern graphics, and I really love that kind of thing. Infographics and like statistics and stuff, which how they're translating that to Marvel Comics is going to be interesting to see.
For sure. Star Wars star Tamura Morris and Spider-Man actor Jacob Batalon have joined Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa in The Wrecking Crew, an action comedy directed by Angel Manuel Sato for Amazon MGM Studios. Production begins in October in New Zealand.
Scotty?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just kind of hoping that this may be, I know it's not the case, but what if it is a Marvel spinoff for the villain B team, the Wrecking Crew? You know, Dave Bautista, he showed up as Drax, but he'd be unrecognizable if he just popped up here. Yeah, we've seen Jacob Batalon before, but he's had a little bit of a glow up since then, so it could work. It's not the case, but it'd be awesome if Marvel did do something like that.
Deadpool and Wolverine reclaimed the number one spot in the box office this weekend, pulling in $18.3 million to second place, Alien Romulus's $16.2 million. Lionsgate's remake of The Crow opened to a disastrous $4.6 million, opening at the very low end of its projections.
Haley, I'll say it for Ashley. They shouldn't have made this movie.
Yeah, that's 4 point in your opening weekend. I mean,
Oof.
just
Rough
that's
stuff.
that's bad. The bad news.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's a cult film already. You know, you're trying to remake a cult film and put it out. I mean, it's just
Not just a cult film, but a cult film with so much extra stuff around it.
in
It's
which
like,
the main actor like died during it and all.
Yeah,
Like it's just like it's a weird thing to try to go after, and it just did not pay off. It was in the gamble that did not pay off. I think the budget for this thing was like $50 million or something. Like, yeah, it's not looking good.
That is not good. Paramount dropped the first trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog 3 today. The film stars Jim Carrey, Idris Elba, Ben Schwartz, James Marsden, and Keanu Reeves, and debuts in theaters on December 20th.
Scotty, people keep asking if I'm fast. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm fast. So, obviously, we had Keanu stepping in to play the role of Shadow the Hedgehog. And the Sonic franchise has been a little hit or miss for me. I saw the first film, appreciated certain aspects of it, but was not impressed enough to see the second film, and I haven't watched the Knuckles series. But this trailer tapped into something. I think it's speaking to the era of Sonic fan that I am. It's really, with the character of Shadow leaning into that Adventure 2 battle aesthetic, I think is the way to go with it. So I haven't been super interested in the Sonic franchise, but this actually does encourage me to go back and watch that second movie, see how it is, potentially check out the Knuckles series, and then, be excited for when this one does hit this December.
This trailer was actually great. Like, I just watched it just to kind of review and see what it, just what's going on. Like, I like Jim Carrey. I saw the first Sonic movie. I'm like you. I saw the first one, but I haven't seen the second one yet. And I just kind of wanted to check in and just see. And I was like, I was in. Like, I thought it was really, like, Keanu's, like, voice acting was, like, his line delivery. I was like, it didn't need to be this good, but it is, to be successful. And, man, you go back and look at the box office. The first Sonic made over $500 million. The second Sonic made over $700 million. So, like, this is this is a franchise on the rise. Like, they haven't hit that, like, Super Mario level, but, like, they kind of, like, ran, they walked so Super Mario Brothers movie could run. Like, they kind of paved the way a little bit for. There's like a better joke there probably about running and jumping, but ultimately, like, they really paved the way of this, like, video game adaptation thing. And man, I think this movie's gonna, like, I think if you're Disney, you're looking at that because it's opening alongside Mufasa, if I'm not mistaken. And I think if you're Disney, you're watching this trailer and you're like, are we in danger right now? Is this going to capture all the families instead of our movie? And I think there's a case that the answer to that might be, yeah, it might.
I have a Keanu footnote, thanks to TJ Stafford, who dropped the right fan casting in our live stream chat. For Star Wars Keanu, it's Darth Revan, not Darth Bane. I have scrambled eggs for brains tonight, sorry. That's
Still
who
like
I was thinking of when I said it. I just said the wrong name.
I still like my suggestion for young Dooku.
I like young Dooku, that's good.
Yeah,
that is really
a younger Dooku, because Keanu's not young. But
yeah, but he looks it, though.
We're all young. I'm young, you're young, Keanu's young.
Thank you. Forever young. There it is.
That's the song of the night.
Sonic the Hedgehog, I've never seen any of these movies. They just didn't seem to interest me. I grew up on these games, but the lore was never really important to me. And I just was shocked at how the cartoon characters... So I agree with you. This trailer looked awesome. And it was, like, structured really well. But every time Sonic spoke and was on screen, I felt like he was in a different movie. Like, the characters around it felt like they were in this really intense, like, kind of comic booky sci-fi movie. And then it kept cutting to Sonic. He's like, hey, guys, where are we going? And he's like, the cartoon, the animation, I don't think seems to fit the vibe of the universe they're building to me. And I think that may be kind of the point, like, the anachronism of it. But, like, it was very strange to me. It was a little off-putting because I have not seen these movies and didn't realize it would feel that way to me. Okay, up next, this weekend, Inside Out 2 became the first animated film to cross the $1 billion threshold internationally.
Scotty, surprised it hadn't happened sooner. Good for Pixar, good for Inside Out 2.
It's awesome. Warner Brothers has released the official trailer for Super/Man, a documentary about the life of Christopher Reeve. The documentary will debut in theaters later in September.
Jay, we've been talking a lot about this because it's been talked about for a long time that it was a documentary in the works. And so the trailer was finally released for it. We've only heard about it, but now we got our first look at it. And man, like, it really seems like it's going to be a really emotional experience of a documentary. If you don't know anything about Christopher Reeve, I mean, obviously he played Superman, but he also suffered an accident horseback riding and became a quadriplegic. He was paralyzed from the neck down. And it seems like this documentary is really honing in on that part of his story and what that meant for him. We've heard a lot of hype around this from James Gunn particularly, has talked a lot about it as like, this is a movie that you need to see if you're a fan of this type of thing. So I think if you've heard about, I mean, we've talked about it a lot. If you've kind of heard about it, you like documentaries, go check out the trailer. Like I think it kind of gives off a very particular feel that maybe I don't know if I was expecting, and I'm interested in it. I think it's going to be a really like interesting, hard but like interesting look at this person and what he means.
Up next, James Gunn treated fans to their first official look at Sky Gazando's Jimmy Olsen in an Instagram post celebrating the 83rd anniversary of Superman's best friend.
Haley, we couldn't get out of here without there being a James Gunn post. I also saw something where he talked about finishing filming Superman super early to give visual effects people time to make it right. So,
yeah.
Don't know why he would be saying that.
He's like, I'm not one of those bad guys like everybody else.
I'm a cool guy.
We don't abuse our VFX artists over here. Also, has there ever been any more perfect casting than this one? Like, if you've seen the photo,
it's great.
Like, I mean, it's great. Dead. It's dead.
But
it's crazy.
I will say, this picture, it's just Skylar Gazando. Like, it just looks just like him.
But
like,
that's what works. That's what works.
It works 100%. But like, there's also, he's not like doing anything. He's just standing there.
He's just waving.
Like,
he's just like,
he's
hey.
just like being Jimmy Olsen. He's just being himself. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was funny. But I do think he's a great casting. All right. Well, guys, we are done with all our news. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will be back next week with lots more. We do this live, by the way, on YouTube, youtube.com/strandedpanda, where we have all our content for the network. So go check that out every Tuesday night at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, and we'll be on here next week again. And the live chat has been very active tonight, and I love to see it. I love to see you guys chatting and hanging out. Let's go around and tell people where they can find your stuff online. Jay Sisson.
Yeah, you can find me at Commute the Podcast every week on Monday mornings, where me and my co-host Dave cover some interesting topics in about 20 minutes. I also had the opportunity to appear on friend of the show, Sarah Day McDougall's Harry Potter podcast, which is called Peeves Gabfest. The episode that I was on is not out yet, but it'll be coming out soon. I was on that episode with Zuhair Ali, who's also appeared on this program. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because it stemmed from a comment I made on this podcast about Quidditch and how the rules are stupid. And so they brought me on to essentially try to pitch a new version of Quidditch, which we spent over an hour doing, which I did not expect to, but it just went, and it was a good conversation. So again, that show's called Peeves Gabfest. If you like Harry Potter and you want to hear that conversation, that episode should be coming out relatively soon. So go subscribe to that show and check that out when it drops.
That's super fun. Haley Hobbs.
Brian and I have a lot going on at Source Pages. We dropped our 12th Secret Wars primer tonight. We're going to be reading the 2015 James Robinson Scarlet Witch run for Agatha All Along, and we are probably going to be doing some double week episodes, including our review of the new Marvel book, What If Wanda Maximoff and Peter Parker Were Siblings, which we both got early from Random House and have read, or I think in the process of reading. And we're also doing a giveaway because I had a pre-order copy of that book and I couldn't cancel it. So you can have my copy of the book that I ordered, and if you want the giveaway rules, they are on our socials.
Awesome. And J. Scotty Sinclair.
Yeah, you can catch me over on Animation Deliberation, the podcast that takes action, animation, and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. You can find me and my co-host, the aforementioned Zuhair Ali. They're celebrating all the latest and greatest in animation. And I also appeared on two friends of the show, Bill Bria and Ashley Coffin's Bill and Ashley's Terror Theater. I mentioned it last week, but the episode for Alien Romulus is now out. Had a really good time discussing that film, so please check it out. And then I will be at Dragon Con, so if you're listening and you think you'll be at Dragon Con, don't be a stranger. Come say hello. I don't want to steal your thunder though, Matt. Tell them all the deets.
Oh yeah. If you're anywhere near Atlanta, Georgia, we're going to be doing a live Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. It's our 10th anniversary of the show. We almost made the 1,000 episodes. We're at like 985 or something like that in 10 years. And it's exciting. And we'll be there. Me, Jeff, and Ashley will be doing that panel as for one of our 10th anniversary episodes. And then Jay Scotty's joining us. We're going to be making some content and running around, and I'm excited he's going to be there. And we'll probably be partying after the panel. So if you're anywhere after if you're anywhere near there, come out, join us. It would be great to meet and greet with some pandas. So I'm really excited to see who shows up to that. It's going to be fun. And we'll be back here next week. So stick around. Peace.
You stay classy, Multiverse.
Hey, thanks for listening to Multiverse News, or watching it, or whatever you're doing, eyeballs or ear holes, whichever thing. We do this show every week, and we appreciate you listening. StrandedPanda.com is where you can find all of our podcasts, and thank you for listening. Check us out wherever you get podcasts. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit the little bell icon, whatever you have on whatever service you're doing. Rate us, like us. We're really thirsty. That's what I'm saying.